Yo, what is going on? Welcome to day 11 of Azumi Game Devlog. We are in the double digits for real now. It's happening. It's going up. Shit. That means time is going by. Shit is getting real. It's getting closer and closer to the deadline. Will I make it in time? It will be fucking close, let me tell you. But we made some progress today, which is good. I was actually updating on Twitter throughout the day, so some of you have probably already seen this. We haven't seen the final result. Well, close to the final result, which we're going to dive into now. So, I made the first real enemy today, and I modeled him in 3D. It's this little slime guy. So, he's going to be kind of like the Goomba, the chump enemy of the game. There'll be a bunch of them. They die in one hit. They're pretty weak. But they're just little herba-derba things. And he started as a little sketch on paper, drew him, and then I modeled him in 3D. There's a 3D model here. And he has a cool effect if you drag him around. He kind of like wiggles because he's made of jelly and shit. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then what I did from there, because someone asked me, how did you take this 3D model and convert it into a 2D sprite? So it's actually a pretty simple process. I actually do it right here on the video. So what you do is you take your image. So for me, I'm using 3D models because I like working in 3D, and I can reuse these assets later if I need to do like cutscenes, or if I want to make a different game later with a different perspective, or if I want to make a 3D game. I already have the asset made in 3D. You take this, whatever your image is. So I'm going to actually just do what I did before. I just render this really low resolution. So if you have a 2D image or something else, you want to just scale it down to a low resolution. This is 32 by 64. It's low res. So you get this, and then you save it as an image file, or whatever you're doing. If you already have an image and you can open it up in an image editor, you don't need this step. Now, you can do this in either Photoshop or GIMP. I did it in GIMP because GIMP's just faster to open than Photoshop, but I can show you in both. So let's open up Photoshop first. Drag it down here. Oh god, it's so laggy. Don't mind my Namkai Bando. I was throwing that around earlier in between working. So let's go File. I'm going to open. Hopefully there's nothing incriminating on my desktop. It's going to take forever because, of course, when I put this into Windows 7 basic mode so I can record at high frame rates, it just looks like Leduc. So let's get a bunch of garbage on here. Slime. Oh, that's right. I re-rendered over all of them. Except for Slime 1, I think. I think this one is safe. I'm going to open it up. Make sure I'm not talking out of my ass. Alright, let's zoom in because it's very small. Yeah, this is the one. This is the original one before. So here's the image. And what you want to do is, oh god, I didn't do this in Photoshop. Yeah, image adjustments. Where's contrast? Brightness contrast. And I usually bump up the contrast a little bit because it'll help with the colors in a second. So in GIMP, I bumped it up about 15 points, but here, probably closer to 30 for the same effect. You can toggle off and on. Just gives a little bit more punch, and the contrast will help with the pixelation in a second. So then we're going to go to Image. I think I'm going to go to Image. I don't know why it's not letting me. Image. There we go. Mode. We want to do Indexed Color. So what this is going to do is this is going to take this RGB image, and we're going to basically reduce the color space down to a limited amount of colors. Now what we want is the lower colors you have, the more retro it's going to look. For me, I'm trying to emulate the Sega Genesis, which from my basic research, 15 colors plus transparency. So from here in Photoshop, we can also change the dither options. For Azumi, I did none. For this guy, I did a oh god, I forget what it's called in GIMP, but let's just do like a diffusion pattern. Just hit OK. There you go. You can see it's reduced the colors now down to just a kind of 16-bit-esque look. And if you can dial it up or down and make tweaks and adjustments after the fact, I'd go back in and clean up the eye a little bit because I lost some detail. Happens sometimes. But that's how you do it in Photoshop. GIMP, it's very similar. If I open up GIMP, which, let's see, works a lot faster for some reason. I have them all the frames open here, but I did the same thing. You just go to Image, Mode, Indexed. Since this is already indexed, it's not going to ask me, but then you choose how many colors you want. It's very similar from that point. And in GIMP, if you want to bump the brightness contrast, go into colors, no, not colors. Yeah, colors, brightness, contrast. And then you bump up the contrast here. So pretty much the same method. So if you don't have Photoshop, it's GIMP, it's better and free. So that's great. So now that I have those sprites, I brought them into Construct, and if we load up the game, move, see, there he is. He's in the game. He's replaced to the skull. You can see I adjusted his movement a little bit, so he kind of just like shuffles along the ground a little bit. So I added like a start and stop to his movement instead of him just going straight back and forth. Now, I don't have any other animations made yet besides this one. So if you hit him or something, nothing really happens. He just kind of dies, which is pretty boring. I kind of want to have him like split in half, like explode into goo or something. Maybe his little eyeball rolls out or something. I don't know. It sounds really complicated, so I don't know if I'm going to do that. But that's on the docket for tomorrow. And how I'm going to do the other animations, if we jump back into Blender, escape out of here, and I unhide the stuff, I just like have a really simple two-bone setup. You just grab him, you can move him around, and he does stuff. And then I can like scale. So I squashed and stretched him to make that little animation when he kind of extends out, to like move around, because he's just slime. He's a slime. He can do whatever he wants. And then I have this little empty that controls the displace modifier that lets him kind of wiggle around. So if you put those together, like let's make a quick animation here. Let's put in a keyframe. We'll do rotation, location rotation, and then we'll go a little bit further, and then we will rotate like this. Location rotation. Play it back. You can see he gon' move. Actually, I'll give it a little bit more frames so we can actually really appreciate it. Now arm back up. We'll do this. It's a stupid animation, but it's just for demonstration purposes. And then what I'm going to do also is I'll just grab this guy and I'll key it at the beginning and the end. Drag a bit. Now play it back. He does a quick little move and he kind of jiggles around. So I'm just going to use these simple little things to key a stunned animation, like when he gets hits, like he'll recoil back, and then a death animation. The death animation is going to have like goo and things, so I might actually just do that in the pixel editor because it'll be a little bit easier to get that done. But yeah, that's what we did today. We have our first little baby enemy, and I'll be designing more in the coming weeks. I'll probably have maybe 3 or 4 enemies, I'm thinking, by the time the vertical slice is done. It's going to be tough to have that many because I have to model all of them, because I'm not really good at animating in 2D. I'm good at animating in 3D, and I use good very liberally. So yeah, that's going to probably be the bulk of the work, because if I'm just doing an arena for the game, and I'm not going to worry about level design too much for the vertical slice, that won't take too much longer to do. I'm just going to make a quick little tile set, get that set up, do a background, and I can do all that in 2D. I don't even need to model it. So the bulk of the work from this point forward is going to be refining combat and modeling enemies and getting their logic worked out. If you want to see the logic real quick, this is the power of families. If I bring this down here. Uh-oh. It's not working. It's so laggy. Please. Alright, that didn't work at all. Here we go. So, if you remember from a couple vlogs back, when I made the enemies, I made an enemy family. So I have the basic enemy logic. So anything I group into the enemy's family inherits all these conditions. So when I started doing this, I'm like, oh, but I want the slime to move differently than the skull. So am I going to have to just like take him out of the enemy thing? No. Construct did this well. All of these things apply to everything in the enemy group until you have something specific for the object, in which case the object logic supersedes the group. So even though I have movement set up here, uh, that's very basic, like the skull is, because I have conditions here that say when the slime moves, do something different, it ignores the family and goes down specifically to the object, which makes sense as how I was hoping it would work, because families would be much less useful without it. So, as you can see, basic logic like the flipping the sprite around, colliding with the boundary to keep it from going off platforms, that's all handled by the enemy logic, the family logic. So everything inherits this automatically. But then it ignores the animation commands in here for the basic enemies and is replaced with these animation controls, which tell it to pause for a second in between animations, so it kind of looks like it's kind of like sliding forward with a little bit more momentum. So really powerful, really cool, like it, good shit. Yeah, awesome. So I just got to make the other animations, add those in, and those actually I won't even need to add any more logic to, because as long as I name the stun and dead animations stun and dead, the conditions are still the same, and I can just use the enemy family logic, and I don't have to add anything else. The only thing I needed to add specifically for the slime was the start and stop movement. So, system is very flexible. I like it. That's good. Yeah. So, fucking sick. We have a real enemy, not a placeholder. We got our main girl. She's gonna fuck him up good. So, that's where we're at for today. And I'll talk to you tomorrow with day 12.